Strap into your seats and get ready. It's time for the Mortarpod.
Hey everybody, Alex Stephenson and Jake Faas here. Welcome to this week's episode of the Mortarpod. I just want to first remind you to subscribe to us on iTunes. I never do this, and I want to, build some subscribers on iTunes because it kind of helps us get more exposure. So I would appreciate it if you could subscribe to us. If you're an audio listener, I would certainly appreciate it. Thank you. And also visit SeemsGoodMagic.com if you haven't already. It's our website. I post draft videos there almost daily. Only miss a couple days here and there, but just tons of Theros block drafts to check out already. And this block's a lot of fun to draft. I think I've already said that a couple times in the last couple podcasts, but it's a great block to play, limited. And this last Journey into Nyx actually did a lot, I think, for getting removal to stop the whole bestow.
Yeah, they added a lot of exile everything attached to it or return it all with hubris. And then there's like effects like Consigned to Dream or Consigned to Dust, whatever it is, I think.
Yeah.
To just destroy multiple targets at once. So
it's balanced it a lot. You're not as dead. Well, there still is the turn 1 creature, turn 2 ordeal play, which is just as ridiculous as it ever was. That's so debilitating.
Yeah, but less easy to see it, and especially in multiples.
That's why bounce spells are so important, like Hubris. Anyway, we digress. Let's get into the show, huh? Let's do it.
We can take a moment.
Cyclical evolution. I guess, yeah, technically we could. All right, cyclical evolution, everybody. This is a section of the show where we talk about old cycles, and currently we're at alliances and homelands. So we looked through, Jake, I should say, really looked through and found all the cycles. These are sort of the unusual cycles that people maybe didn't even realize were cycles, but have some.
And maybe we're stretching on it too. Like let's not say that I'm God here.
We're looking for like relationships between cards from old sets to see if there was sort of a design plan in motion.
And there are things like mechanical. I mean, and especially in alliances, you can see that there were like mechanical similarities that they were going for. Like there are a lot of saboteur creatures in black and in I think mostly in black, but they have some gold ones too. So they had this kind of saboteur thing going on, but none of them were really, in my opinion, a cycle. It wasn't spread across colors. It wasn't spread across rarities in a way that made it like really clear what was happening, So there were these things in alliances and in homelands too that were built into the set that were just mechanical, identities of each of the colors, but they're not necessarily cycles within themselves. I don't see them as, I guess.
Okay. Well, let's jump right into alliances and see what we did think of as cycles. Okay, so we're starting it off with a series of 10 cards. There's just 5 on each page, and these are all of the cards from alliances that have the allied color sort of an ability.
Either they give an ability to allied colored creatures, as in the case of Juniper Order Advocate. They give you allied color mana in Agent of Stromgold. You get an extra effect on Undergrowth that doesn't affect your red creatures or whatever. There are these just ones that need an allied color or want an allied color to really get the full effect. And they were commons and uncommons. The more I think about it, the more I think it was probably just a common and uncommon cycle. I was trying to look at it a little more deeply than what it was at. So it's spread in a bad way, but Juniper Order Advocate and Balduvian Dead are the uncommons here. And then Agent of Stronghold, Undergrowth, and Soldevi Heretic are all commons.
Okay. That's cool. Yeah, so they all just have abilities relating to an allied color.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and then the next 5 we've got are Jeldoran Pride, Nature's Chosen, Phantasmal Fiend, Primitive Justice, and Viscerid Drone. So these also have Jeldoran Pride is white, a white card that's allied with blue. Nature's Chosen is a green card allied with white. Phantasmal Fiend is a black card allied with blue. Primitive Justice, red card with green, and Viscerid Drone is a blue card with black.
Mm-hmm.
So
and then
that's cool.
The commons here were Jeldoran Pride and Phantasmal Fiend. All of the commons got 2 different arts out of this cycle, so that should have been my indicator while I was going through it. But yeah, and then Nature's Chosen, Viscerid Drone, and Primitive Justice are all the uncommons.
Okay. So wait, it was 5 uncommons, 5 commons.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so there was.
It was just a rarity. It was rarity and then allied color within the rarity. That
Okay.
was all.
That's cool. Okay, next is a land cycle. We've got Balduvian Trading Post, which is red, Heart of Yavimaya, which is green, Jeldoran Outpost, which is white, Lake of the Dead, which is black, and Soldevi Excavations, which is blue. This is a really cool cycle.
Mm-hmm.
I really like how they all have their uniqueness amongst themselves.
Mm-hmm.
Balduvian Trading Posts, for example, taps for a colorless and a red, whereas and Soldevi Excavations do that.
Mm-hmm.
And then the other 3, just tap for 1 and
Mm-hmm.
have a different ability. So it's cool how they sort of differentiated them.
Yeah, and those 2 that tap for 2 mana, you actually have to sacrifice an untapped mountain or island.
Very interesting.
To make it to justify it. But the ones that tap for only 1, you actually can tap it for mana before you play it.
I really like Jeldoran Outpost is spitting out soldier creatures. Mm-hmm. That's very good.
That card was, I think, a control finisher.
Very cool.
Yeah, it was counter post or something like that. I can't remember
very
exactly
cool.
What it was.
Heart of Yavimaya, it obviously must have been a great card at the time too, since it's like a land combat trick.
Mm-hmm.
That's very cool. Lake of the Dead, I know, was a big card. Ramping for 4 black.
Yeah, that card's just fun.
Soldevi Excavations for scrying.
That card is way ahead of its time.
It's true.
Yeah.
Have they even done other Scrylands since then?
Just scrying cheats, I think.
Yeah, you're right, and that's specifically for snow. So, very cool. And then Balduvian Trading Post does 1 to an attacking creature. Also relevant. So, very relevant cycle.
Mm-hmm.
I like it. That was cool. Well done in Alliances.
Yeah.
Okay, next, this is a really interesting cycle.
We might have a small disparity here.
Yeah. Bounty of the Hunt, Contagion, Force of Will, Pyrokinesis, and Scars of the Veteran. Okay, so this is a cycle where you can remove a card of the same that shares a color with it from your hand and sometimes do something else to get the same effect.
Yeah. Contagion and Force of Will are the only 2 that make you pay a life in addition.
And you think that was just sort of a power level, how they viewed the power level of these cards? Or the colors they were
I don't know that I think it was more color-based with Contagion in particular. And probably so with Force of Will. It might have also been that counter target spell they viewed as even then as very good. So they were like, well, let's make them pay life too. Force of Will is so hilarious though because the casting cost is so over the top outrageous that you almost can't play it any other way except for doing the alternate cost.
That's true.
And there's hardly a moment where you want to cast it for the full cost, I guess. Whereas some of these other ones you could probably justify them in some way to cast for full cost at some point. But yeah, Force of Will is like you don't want to cast this for full cost, Contagion killing 2 cards at once or 2 creatures at once for 5 mana or killing 1 for 5 mana instant speed is totally fine, especially at that time. And then Scars of the Veteran potentially saving 7 damage is really good too, and buffing your guy to do it again. So if you had like a bodyguard type creature out at that time, or what is it, the deserter Childorian house
Yeah.
guard or whatever.
Yeah, the guy that spits out the 0/1 survivors.
Yeah. And even Bounty of the Hunt to give +3/+3 until end of turn among your creatures. Pyrokinesis is just a sweet board wipe. But yeah, Force of Will, it's like once it's at 5 mana, you probably just want Counterspell.
It's very funny. I mean, Legacy pretty much hinges on Force of Will. Combo would be out of control in Legacy if it wasn't for Force of Will. So it's the only thing really like holding decks like Charbelcher in place. Very interesting that that card ended up being so important for the Eternal formats. But that's cool. It is, you're right, there's a lot of disparity since the other cards pretty much nil play.
Yeah. I mean, they're take it or leave it effects.
I'm sure they're fine in limited.
Yeah.
You know?
But then that's the whole thing of it. In limited, those are so much better, are not so much better, but they're totally fine for their full cost,
Yeah.
And Force of Will is not fine in limited for its full cost.
Bounty of the Hunt is hilarious.
Yeah,
it would put counters and then remove them.
Take them back.
It makes no sense.
Yeah.
Now they would just, it would have just gotten
or
it would have just gotten +3/+3.
No, I think permanent counters until end of turn or permanent counters is fine, because you have to exile a creature or a card in your hand, or it's 5 mana.
Yeah. But it's essentially a free combat trick or whatever.
It's true.
So that's cool. Cool cycle. Alright, next we have Dystopia, Nature's Wrath, Omen of Fire, Royal Decree, and Title Control. Now, are these the hate cards from this? Okay, so color hate. We've got Dystopia, which is hating green and white. And we've got Nature's Wrath, which is hating blue and black. Omen, and that's the green card. Omen of Fire is the red, and that is hating blue and white. Royal Decree is the white spell, and it is hating black and red. And then we have Title Control in blue, which is hating red and green. So, sort of the double hate cycle. This definitely had some design idea in place when they were making these.
The interesting thing is that all of them, except for Omen of Fire, are enchantments as well. So it's like they were very close to having a full enchantment cycle of color hate, and they just missed it by a little bit. And Omen of Fire does 2 different things, whereas all of the other ones do the same thing to screw over each of their enemy colors. Whereas Omen of Fire returns all islands to their hands and then makes everybody who controls white permanent or planes, or no, sacrifice a white permanent or planes for each white permanent he or she controls. So it does 2 different effects for each of the 2 colors it's hating on. So it actually takes a little bit of a leap from what the other ones do in the cycle.
Very interesting. Very those color hates. When do we really start seeing the turnaround on that?
You mean when they stop making them brutal?
When do we start seeing the slowdown on?
Really, like Title Control is insane. Just what that does is out of control.
It's commutative upkeep too, but players have to pay 2 or 2 life. Any player can pay 2 colorless or 2 life to counter a red or green spell. Wow. So you can just basically keep them off spells for a shot. Very interesting. Yeah, this is cool. Just paying 2 colorless thing is very good.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's so. Oh yeah. When did they stop doing this so much?
I think they decided to change how they were doing it in like Tempest, because I think Mirage still has some significant
brutal
color hate. Not necessarily brutal, but it was that kind of get them both and get them all at all times whenever you can. And then in Tempest they started to tone it back a little bit. But I guess in Urza's Saga they had the white enchantment that gave all creatures pro-black, and the other white enchantment that gave all creatures pro-red, which is just like, wow, thanks.
Okay, so you think that's when they started slowing down, not making it as good?
Yeah, I think it might have been after that.
Okay.
Probably even in Odyssey or later.
I guess we'll find out when we
Yeah,
get to them.
yeah.
They're right on the horizon. Alright, next we have Fatal Lore, Library of Latnam, and Misfortune. Now, there's certainly no color correlation here, but they all have to do with an opponent being given a choice.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of an interesting cycle. Is this the first time we've seen something like this
Yeah.
in Magic?
It was their modal spells that your opponent gets the choice. And really, I guess because of what I was saying earlier about, you know, kind of mechanical things that aren't necessarily a cycle. This isn't necessarily a cycle, but it's cool, that they decided to do this. They now have it not be modal. If your opponent gets a choice, it'll be part of the spell's effect, like Distant Memories from Mirrored and Besiege and stuff like that, where your opponent kind of gets to see at least half your choice and then decide based on that,
Okay.
But, yeah, they get to decide. Fatal Lore is totally useless if your opponent has no creatures, which is hilarious. And they hardly ever want you to draw 3 cards, So they're mostly going to... I don't understand why they got to draw cards, I don't understand that.
Because you're killing the creatures.
Yeah, but that should have been the choice. I'm either going to kill 2 of your creatures or you'll let me draw 3 cards.
Yeah, it shouldn't have been draw 3 for sure.
Yeah, or I'm going to kill 2 of yours and you can draw 3.
You're almost doing them a favor at that point.
Kill them. I'll choose my best ones for you.
Oh, that's weird.
There we go.
Okay. So, yeah, and then Library of Latnam is a blue one.
Mm-hmm.
And then Misfortune is a multicolor one. It's Jund colored with a colorless. And Jake and I thought it was funny that it's called Misfortune and your opponent gets the choice.
Yeah.
And both of them are supposedly bad for your opponent, so he is the one with the misfortune, but somehow he still gets to choose.
It almost shouldn't have been a modal spell. It almost should have done both effects at once,
Yeah, then it might have been...
For being in 3 colors.
It would have been cool, yeah. We see similar stuff to that in black and green, with like Sandgrite, Surge, and weird stuff like that.
Yeah.
Okay, now we're on to Homelands. We started off with Folk of Anhava and Joven's Ferrets. They're both 1-drop, 1/1 creatures, and with Folk of Anhava, when they're a blocker, they get +2/+0, and then Joven's Ferrets, when it's an attacker, it gets +0/+2. I love how they're like counterintuitive hopes to what they're doing.
Yeah, it's so stupid.
Ferrets is actually pretty good though.
Is cool
because whatever blocks them gets tapped and they don't untap. So they're a little bit more tricky to block.
They're cool. It's cool that they get bigger.
I actually like Folk of Anhava. I think a 1-mana 3/1 blocker is totally playable and limited.
Yeah, I definitely think it's a fine limited card because it could get some attacks in first too.
Blocking up like that is big.
Yeah.
Like
it's
a
true.
Nethian Courtier or something.
It's an interesting take on what you would normally expect from cards that block, You would normally expect them to get bigger on the butt. But
it's true. Okay, next is very cool. We've got Clockwork Steed and Clockwork Swarm, so we finally get to bring back a couple cards. Clockwork Beast, all the way back from Alpha, and Clockwork Avian from Antiquities. So this is a cool cycle. Maybe you want to kind of sum up what's going on. It has to do with +1/+0 counters being put on them when you cast them, and then as it attacks or blocks, they're removed. That's kind of a common theme.
Yeah, and there's also Clockwork Gnomes in this set in Homelands, but it doesn't have a Clockwork ability, which is kind of dumb.
So it's sort of, I consider that independent.
Yeah, I don't think it's really part of the cycle other than its name. It has the name. But there's this clear mechanical thing keeping these together, and you can charge them. This is they had been printed in 4th edition and in Revised, but this is the first expansion since printing Clockwork Avian where they actually printed out the X and tap ability on it.
Cool.
And had the text written, as close to what it was going to be for Oracle eventually anyway.
It's funny that it's still, unfortunately, antiquated because it's +1/+0 counters. which we've talked about this before. They don't do that anymore. Now counters are just +1/+1.
The Clockwork Steed art is pretty sweet, actually. Clockwork Swarm, not as cool.
Yeah. I mean, I love the cannot be blocked by walls ability. Very, always funny.
Yeah, it was like they were really stretching for evasive abilities.
I really like that in Theros they sort of took the opposite to that old ability with
Can only be blocked by walls.
with Prowler's Helm.
Yeah.
So that was cool, because that is actually really good. That's like straight up your dudes are unblockable.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's cool that they sort of tied up that. Are we going to see more Clockwork creatures?
They've already done them, or I mean, yes.
Okay, so on the horizon,
But they'll
we've
be
got some more.
different.
Okay. Alright, next we have Chandler and Joven. Now, they're both 5 mana, 3/3s. Legend in red. They both have a 3 mana and a tap ability, so there's definitely some design intention here. Chandler taps and destroys artifact creatures. Joven taps and destroys non-creature artifacts. Very cool.
Yeah.
Also, Joven's flavor text is quoting Chandler. And
Chandler sounds like a dick. But Joven apparently is the bouncer at Snarg's House of Sin.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And he destroys artifacts. So, drops a lot of mugs of ale, I guess. I don't know. At the bar.
I guess breaks their gun in half or something.
These guys are cool, though.
Yeah,
they were fun to play.
It was fun.
Okay. Next, we've got, this is a fun land cycle. Okay, so we have
these are so good.
Anhava Township, Asen Abbey, Castle Singer, Koskin Keep, and Wizard School. So, very cool art, actually. I always love the art.
It's so tragic, actually.
I really like the, I actually like the frame, the frame color,
the frame
and the texture that they had.
And the green kind of thing with the land box instead of, like, Alliances had purple, so they had been experimenting with different land box colors.
It just looks nice. But let's talk about these lands. So they all tap for colorless, right? That's a good start.
Well, we'll see.
Okay, so then they all have a 1 and a tap ability for 1 color, and then they have 2 other 2 and a tap abilities for 2 different colors. So it's really weird that it has so many. It's a land with 4 activated abilities on it. All of them have. Is there any other land that even has that many? Do they have the record for the most activated abilities?
It's 2. Or 3 activated abilities now because the 2 and taps are combined.
Oh, they have added that?
Yeah.
Okay, oracled that up. Are there any other lands that have 3 activated abilities? There are probably a couple, but not many.
Yeah. I'm sure there are, and I just don't want to say yay or nay on it. And then
I'm sure there are.
tell me.
But unfortunately, these are absolutely dreadfully terrible.
They were really playing it safe. They played it so safe with these.
They're straight up strictly worse than Shimmering Grotto, which is arguably bad by a lot of people.
I mean, even if at this time they would have been 1 and tap for any 3 of those colors, that would have been an improvement over what they are and slightly playable.
Yeah.
But these are like just completely unplayable, and it's so sad because they do have sweet art and
they do.
They're cool.
They're in our crap trash.
Yeah. If they had just gotten rid of the colorless ability and reduced the cost of all the other ones, it would have been fine. It would have been a really great cycle.
Weird Harvest. Weird Harvest, everybody. So this is a segment of the show where we talk about a weird card from the past. And when we say weird, we're specifically referring to the name of the card as well as the picture. Whatever the game or the card was designed mechanically is not that big of a deal. We'll still figure it out, but mostly we're focusing on the art and name of the card. Okay, so we've got this week, since we're in Homelands and Alliances, Mr. Rhizorian Badger. So he's a 3 mana 2/2 Badger creature. Is he still a Badger? I hope so.
I don't know. Maybe he is. He could be a beast. But...
And then when he attacks and he's not blocked, you can make him deal no damage, and if you do, you can exile 2 creature cards from a player's graveyard and gain a life for each creature removed this way. And so let's talk about the name. Rhizorian Badger is kind of funny in itself. I kind of feel like Rhizorian should have been reserved for like a mercenary or like a. It sounds like sort of a more bandit sort of.
Yeah, it's funny that they
Or
even
foreign.
used.
It sounds like a foreign sort of dignitary name.
Yeah, I don't understand why they busted it. They
It's a cool word,
Yeah.
just not well placed.
They didn't use
Badger.
it any other place. Everything else in green is on Hava,
Yeah.
So it doesn't really make sense to just toss this one in randomly and then not bring it up anywhere else.
Yeah. Maybe Rhizorian means something or it's a play
It's
on.
probably like somebody's name somehow mixed up or whatever, the
I
way
see.
that they always used to do that.
But let's talk about the picture. So it's a badger that's playing.
Busting out a sweet drum solo.
He's playing drums on a skull.
Yeah.
It's a badger playing drums on a skull. It's amazing.
Yeah.
What an excellent picture by Heather Hudson.
Yeah, good job. You did it.
I mean, who doesn't want to watch a badger not only play drums, but do it on a human skull?
Mm.
Everything about that is absolutely amazing. And it's a
Rhizorian
broken
badger don't
bone.
care.
It's a broken bone.
Broken femur.
It's dangerous.
Snapped in half.
He just lives in danger, and I love how his little paw legs are just gracefully.
I know. They're actually cute. They're actually cute. He has cute little feet.
He's just sitting, just patiently banging away on that human skull. I would love to just be able to hear that noise and recreate
that
it for
nice
everybody.
hollow human skull. Nice. Good job, Badger.
But
That'll do, Badger.
All right.
That'll do.
Well, that's it for this week, folks. Thanks for tuning in, and once again, if you could subscribe to us on iTunes, I'd really appreciate it. That would help us out a lot. And check out SeemsGoodMagic.com. All right, guys. See you later.
Later.